hanging out, and I'll see you in a bit.
Thank you for having me back. Hi everyone, my name is Ayla. I'm with Bully. My office is at Avenue and Lawrence, so I'm very close to you guys. My practice, I've been practicing almost 15 years. My focus is pretty much real estate. I do some business law, any sort of business connected with any kind of real property, but also like sale, purchase of business, etc., and everything related to real estate.
Question quickly, do you do like advertisement law?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't, but I can refer you to someone.
Okay, amazing,
Refer you
thank
to
you.
someone, yeah. So we're gonna talk today about the prohibition on foreigners purchasing property in Canada. We're gonna talk about the foreign buyer tax, because that ties in to this. There's a lot of people that assume if you overcome the ban, then there's no additional taxes, and unfortunately there is, and that's a big component. And then we'll just talk about the impacts of this ban on investments in Canada. So none of this is legal advice. I'm just providing you guys with some general information. If there's a particular client or matter that you need advice on, please contact me and we can set up something. Okay, so the Prohibition on the Purchase of Residential Properties by Non-Canadians Act. So this was introduced in January 2023. It was supposed to be for a period of 2 years. It got extended to January 1st, 2027. What is the act? It's exactly as the title suggests. It prohibits foreigners from purchasing real estate in Canada. Now there's exceptions and exemptions, and we're going to go through that. So, what is considered residential property? So a residential property, according to the definition in the regulations, is any single family dwelling, duplex, triplex, vacant land that's zoned for residential, vacant land that's zoned for mixed use. So what that would mean is if a foreigner is looking to purchase in Canada, they could look at fourplexes or more. If a contract was entered into before the ban came into effect, the ban does not apply to it. So the law is not retroactive. It's anything that's signed after January 1st, 2023. Okay, sorry. What happened to my slide? So what is a purchase? So a purchase is defined as the acquisition of any legal or beneficial interest in the land. So the agreements that you guys sign every day, if someone were to purchase that way, if someone's acquiring someone's beneficial interest under a contract, if someone is assigning their rights under an existing contract, all of those would be seen as a purchase. A purchase isn't limited just to purchasing residential property, so it could also include acquisition of interest in leases and mortgages. So for example, a non-Canadian business could be prohibited from leasing a commercial property if it's on land that's zoned for residential or mixed use. Next, properties that are excluded from the ban. So the government has come and looked at all of Canada and have said, okay, where are most of these purchases being done by foreigners? And it's obviously the heavily populated, urbanized areas. So they've come up with areas that have said, okay, if they are a census metropolitan area, which means there's at least 100,000 people and 50,000 of those people are within the core, they're banned from purchasing any property within those areas. If it's a census agglomeration property area, which means if there's at least 10,000 people in the core, you would be excluded. So one of the areas, for example, would be Erin, Ontario. You could purchase property there. Your foreign buyer could purchase property there.
Is there
Can you just go through that one more time?
Yes.
Sure.
So
So
I have
that's
a little
all
map
over
here.
Canada.
This is
Okay.
all of Canada.
Is that
So
the sourceable map?
Yeah, so this is, so the highlighted areas are areas that you will not be able to purchase. So if anybody wants this map, I can email it to them. It's really hard for you to see right now, I'm sorry. And when I blow it up, it becomes too blurry. But this is a nice map that kind of shows you the metropolitan areas and the census agglomeration areas that are within the band. So any properties within those areas.
So you
are-
can buy in the gray areas, but the other colors you can't.
You cannot buy in the gray areas,
Oh,
but in the
sorry.
other areas you can.
Oh.
Why are they, what are the different colors though?
Just to tell you what the areas are. So for example, this is a census metropolitan area. You see these orange areas?
Mhm.
You're not able to purchase in those areas.
So what is allowed color?
What's a loud color? So you can purchase anywhere
White.
here,
Yeah, okay.
some places in here,
Mm-hmm, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
okay?
But the
So that's like
fourplex,
all Ontario?
This is all of,
No, but like.
I mean, yeah.
but the fourplex and greater strategy still works in any of the areas across Canada.
Yeah, so if you have a client in Toronto that wants to buy a
But Labrador's
fourplex,
is done.
they're not prevented from doing so.
Can I ask a question that's kind of a workaround on that?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Isn't that middle?
If they buy a fourplex and convert it to a threeplex after they've been registered, is there any restrictions on?
So that's a really good question, and I've thought of that, and people have asked me that. This law is so new that it hasn't been tested yet, so I would say seemingly no, because the intention of the act is to make housing affordable for Canadians, and doing something like that isn't something that I think that they're intending to happen. So I would say off the bat, no, but we would have to kind of dig deeper and look into it a little bit deeper, but off the bat, I would probably say no. Because a lot of people would end up doing that.
No, it just makes sense with the old houses downtown, there are already 4 units.
Yep,
Just convert 2 to a single family unit and keep the,
yeah.
your,
So the act is silent on that. It doesn't say what would happen if you purchase a fourplex, a fiveplex, and then convert it into a single family, a residential unit. It doesn't say anything on that, but, I'm certain that if we dig deeper and look closer at it, there must be regulations around that as well.
thank you.
No problem. Okay, so who does the ban apply to? So it would apply to anyone that's not a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, registered Indian under the Indian Act, or married, any foreign corporations, or any foreign corporation that has 3% or more interest in a Canadian company, or 3% of its voting rights. What is control? So this is more with respect to companies, so corporations. So any corporation that has a direct or even indirect ownership interest in any of the Canadian companies or entities that's 3% or more, or 3% of the voting rights, as I mentioned, or if they have foreign control directly or indirectly of that Canadian corporation by way of some sort of agreement, trust agreement, management agreement, partnership agreement, etc. The exceptions. So, exceptions to acquiring property, the ban would not be subjected to it, is anyone getting property as a result of death, divorce, separation, gift, under the transfer of a trust under an estate, power of sale, so lenders enforcing their rights and the need to acquire the property, and the acquisition of residential property for the purpose of development. So purchasing a piece of land and developing it into a subdivision. People that are an exception to the ban. So any foreign nationals, anyone holding a diplomatic passport, refugees, refugee claimants, individuals who are purchasing a property with their Canadian spouse, and that property will be their primary residence. Does everyone kind of know the difference between a refugee and a refugee claimant?
No.
Okay.
No.
So a refugee is someone who's come to Canada, they've put forth their case, and the Immigration Refugee Board has accepted their case, has heard their case, and has made a decision that they are convention refugees. And they're issued that, that's a status. The next step would be they would apply for PR. A refugee claimant is someone who's arrived, they've put forth their case, and the Immigration and Refugee Board has said, okay, you know what, we accept your case and we will hear it, but a decision hasn't been made yet. Those kind of individuals are also exempt.
So can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
You were saying if a Canadian has a foreign spouse,
Yes,
that's an exception.
yes. So as long as, I mean, there's a few other conditions, but the main thing is they're getting that property to live in. It's gonna be their primary residence.
Got it.
Out of curiosity, what is the requirement of the Canadian portion of that relationship? If they've both been out of the country, is there a requirement for tax submissions and?
There is not. That's actually a really good question. So I had a client, so she was a DJ in Miami, and they wanted to start a family. So her spouse, common law spouse, was an American, actually French and then American. And they wanted to come back to Canada because they wanted to start a family. Her family was here, and she hadn't been, she would come and go, but she hadn't been residing like full-time in Canada. And they came, they bought a penthouse, and they both went on title, and he was exempt because she is the Canadian. So as long as she's a Canadian, so a citizen or a permanent resident, and the house that they're acquiring is going to be their primary residence, there's no.
So there's no legal requirement for any tax, for history of tax submission while they were away?
No.
But it may be a lender requirement?
Yes, so for financing, yeah,
Okay.
that's completely different. I believe, yes, they wanna know your financials and how you've made money, et cetera. But in terms of purchasing, no, there's no requirement.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's further exemptions for two categories of temporary residents. So that would be foreign workers or students. So students that are here on a study permit, as long as they file tax returns in the 5 years preceding the date of purchase, they've been in Canada at least 244 days in the past 5 years preceding the date of purchase, 244 days each year in the past 5 years. They can only purchase one property during the ban, and the property cannot be more than 500,000. And then individuals that are here on a work permit. So as long as they have 183 days left in their work permit from the date preceding the date of purchase, and they haven't purchased any other property, they can make a purchase.
It has to be a first-time buyer though?
Yeah, they can't, well, I don't imagine, during the ban, they can only buy one property.
Okay.
So they don't have to be a first-time home buyer. So let's say 5 years ago, before the ban came into effect, they purchased something in Canada, now they're purchasing something else, but the ban is in effect, they would be permitted.
Okay.
But if they purchase something while the ban is in effect and they wanna purchase something else, they can't.
Gotcha.
Okay. Penalties. So anyone found assisting a foreigner in purchasing a property, whether directly, indirectly, inducing them, abetting them, aiding them, whatnot, there would be a penalty. It could be up to $10,000. The government can force the property to be sold, and the foreign buyer would get only their initial investment back, so whatever they put down. So if the property was sold for more, they don't get that back. Now, what kind of things can you guys be doing as realtors? I think you're already doing it with FinTrack, the paperwork that you have to fill out and submit. But I think one of the forms, I know a lot of realtors don't, but it's the certificate and consent of purchaser.
Yeah.
So if you're doing this, you're good, you're covered. Include an indemnity clause, include a representation clause, and that's it.
What's that form?
This is called the certificate and consent of purchaser. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about the tax. So like I said, the foreign buyer that is able to overcome the ban and purchase property, there's still tax considerations that we need to take into account. The non-resident speculation tax, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. So it started off with 15%, they bumped it to 20, and now it's at 25%. So if your client is able to make a purchase in Canada, bear in mind that besides their closing costs and land transfer tax, they also have to pay 25% of the purchase price. So if they're purchasing for $1 million, they're gonna be paying $250,000 additional for this tax.
That's temporary until they get their PR and then they can apply for
Yes, so
reimbursement.
now we're gonna talk about what rebates would be available. Actually, I'm gonna talk about exemptions. who this would not apply to. So anyone that's an immigrant nominee, that's a refugee, that is married to a Canadian spouse, permanent resident, they're buying the property as their primary residence. Do you guys know what an immigrant nominee is?
Isn't that someone who's coming in but hasn't been given the certification of permanent resident yet?
Yeah, so they come in with a nomination certificate. So there's many different avenues of immigration to Canada, as there is with many different countries. One of them is commerce, so they can come through by making an investment. There's certain conditions they have to meet, and if met, the province, so that each province has its own program. Province of Ontario will nominate them and say, hey, federal government, we're nominating this person to immigrate, to start this business, do this, and stimulate our economy. Here's their certificate, now go apply for PR. So they don't have PR, they're temporary residents, but they have that certificate and they would be exempt from this tax.
What kind of investment could that be?
So anything. Ontario has the strictest program because obviously we're the most populated province, I think, in Canada. But it's, last I looked, you have to invest $1 million. So either in an existing business, start a business, but if you start a business, you have to have a whole business plan and it has to be viable, etc. Employ a certain amount of people, invest the money for a certain period of time. So there's a whole list of conditions that they have to meet and fulfill before they're nominated.
If you do that, meet that criteria, would that open an avenue for you to purchase residential property?
So if you are given, so with that status, you should be given a temporary resident visa. If that permits you to work, then yes. But if that doesn't permit you to work, then no, because there's no exemptions under the foreign buyer ban for that class of people. So I'm trying to think if I've ever seen anyone with an immigrant nominee that has a work permit. I think it's possible. So if they have that work permit, and that if there's at least 183 days left on that permit before the date they make the purchase, I think they could. Rebates. So as you pointed out, so you can get this tax that you pay back if you become a permanent resident within 4 years preceding the date of your purchase. There's a bunch of other conditions as well, but the main one is making sure you get your PR. You can claim that rebate back. They make it really hard. I've applied a few times and we successfully got it back, but each time I found they made it harder and harder and asked for more documents and more information.
To get the 25% back? And how long would that take, approximately?
So I did one pre the ban, and it took, I think, 4 to 6 months. And then I did another one, I wanna say it took 8 to 10 months. And there's no interest on it that they pay you. Yeah. Okay, so impacts of this ban on investments in Canada. So I personally, I mean, you guys are in a better place to judge this. I personally haven't seen any effects of this ban on people buying residential homes. The ban, when you look at it a lot closer, it would affect people like let's just say a Canadian subsidiary of a US energy company. They want to acquire land to construct new refinery, based on the act. If that is within a metropolitan consensus area, they wouldn't be able to do so. So in my mind, we want to stimulate Canada's economy. We want to attract foreign investment. With that one foreign investment, you have one person coming to Canada, they need a realtor, they need a banker, they need a home, they need a lawyer, so many different things. Another example would be, the act would prohibit a Canadian private equity fund with a minority Chinese shareholder from acquiring a Canadian pipeline business if that pipeline includes a lease that's on land that's considered to be residential property. So these are kind of the things that I feel the act would really affect, not the fact that they're trying to make residential housing more affordable for Canadians. Because most of those individuals that are coming in, they're not foreigners, they're permanent residents, some are even citizens. They're coming in, they've been here just a few years, and the amount of wealth that they come in is nothing comparable to the wealth that we have here. So for them to pay 50, 100, 200, 300, even $500,000 more on a property that they really want, like, is a drop in the bucket for them. It makes no difference though. Yeah.
I had always seen it as kind of being targeted towards like the pre-con market and stopping that kind of foreign
Yeah, because
investment.
we had a lot of people coming in buying like 10 units at the same time. No, it's meant to affect residential housing, period. So it
Yeah.
could be condos, it could be single family homes, townhouses, semi-detached.
Yeah.
But yeah, so is there any questions? Everyone's good?
Actually, I have a lead who is considering, he's a foreigner,
Yeah,
I don't know how much he has left on his work permit, but it would be like his father purchasing on his behalf, who like lives like back in Ecuador. Like, what would be kind of the caveats to that?
so your client's father wants to purchase a property for him.
But,
in
yeah,
Canada.
but it would be through him, like you'd have to gift him the money or whatever, I'm just
Who's
wondering.
going on title?
Well, it would have to be the son, I guess, right?
Who's the beneficial owner?
It would be the son.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
he's just
so he
helping
would
his
be,
son
he would
buy
be living
property.
there, and obviously the family would use it, but like, yeah. That's just what I'm kind of wondering, the caveats there.
So the beneficial owner would be the son.
Yeah,
That
he's
is
here,
just
he's
helping
studying
him.
here, and, yeah, so like, from what I understand, he should be able to buy, assuming he has enough time left on his work permit.
So he's here on a work permit or a study visa?
He is, I think he's applied for PR, yeah, study visa would actually be it.
So not work permit.
I don't think so, I haven't got these details yet,
Okay,
so.
so I think we should chat a little bit more, because we need to find out how long he's been here.
Yeah,
The program of study needs to be within the accredited, recognized programs, under the act. If he's filed any taxes, and if we overcome all of that, that he can't purchase more than 500,000 if he's here on a study permit.
okay.
But if he's
okay.
here on a work permit, it would be a little bit different.
Okay, yeah, I know he is a student, so I'll figure it out for you.
Yeah, you can contact me. we can
Okay.
chat.
Have the changes to the foreign student policy had any effect on the changes to the foreign buyer policy?
No.
Does that make sense? Because they just restructured the whole foreign student.
The amount of people that they're bringing in,
I don't
allowing
know,
in.
I don't know if that was the only change.
No, so, I think, what you're talking about is they decided to kind of cut down on
Yeah.
the amount of visas that they're issuing to students.
Yeah.
No, it hasn't, because most of those students are like, I've had foreigners on work permits, or like Canadian spouses purchasing. I've never had, actually, no, I'm lying, I had one student, but the rate of students purchasing is far lower. Most of those students coming in can't afford to purchase in Canada. Yeah. It's,
Okay, thank you.
good?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know somebody in Germany, they are thinking of moving to Canada to get away from Europe and retire here.
Okay.
Wrong decision.
So, that's the wrong decision.
Getting closer to the US.
Anyway, I said, why don't you come and visit Canada first before you make any
They've never
decision?
been here?
No. But they have their own business, have lived as expats everywhere. I don't know, Singapore, Tokyo, I don't know, all these places. They said, it's tricky to even buy something. So.
Yeah, so if they can come on, a work permit, they're still working, they're not retired.
So far, they still work.
Okay, so if they can figure out, they need to consult with an immigration lawyer, figure out how they can come here
Mhm.
and get a work permit on hand. And they need to have at least 183 days, which is 6 months and 1 day, on the work permit before the date of purchase, which would go by fast, because when they come, they probably need to kind of figure out the areas, figure out Canada, where they wanna settle, and then, you know, make that purchase.
I'll come here as a tourist and then,
Yeah, well, they should
Yeah.
first visit,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure, but,
okay, yeah.
okay.
There's so many things like to consider, cause I thought you said something about like the student, limit was like 500,000 with the purchase. Didn't you say something like that? And then they had to have, apply for taxes for 5
That's right.
years, and
That's
then
right.
like be
That's
here a
right.
certain number of days, like there's so
So
many
this would
things.
apply to someone that, let's say, comes here and does, like an actual program, like, bachelor's or like,
PhD.
yeah, PhD is a long program, I think like 4 to 6 to 8 years. Bachelor's are 4 years, masters, I don't know how long those are, a few years. So that would be really someone that, you know, they're gonna say, okay, we'll give you a break. You've been here for a while, you wanna establish yourself here, you can purchase a property. But someone just coming here,
Yeah,
no. And what can you buy with 500,000?
exactly.
Not in Toronto.
Like, I'm so curious. Yeah, not in Toronto.
Hamilton, maybe.
Well,
Maybe
there's condos.
for 500,000.
Yeah, something.
Why are you picking on Hamilton?
One bedroom.
I'm not, I'm just.
Not one bedroom.
Listen,
One bedroom.
I have a vested
Where?
interest in
Do you
Hamilton.
live there?
Well, right now,
Is that where you
you
live?
know,
I grew up there, yeah.
Oh.
condos
Well,
are
to name
kind of-
one.
My listing?
Yes, yes.
But you know, it's,
Of
it's
course,
not,
the choice is not big, but it is
Yes,
possible.
yes.
Theoretically, yes.
I think so.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think Philip said he had some questions.
It's on until 2028 though,
Yeah, I
so
think
far,
he said,
right?
he said
27.
To 27,
People
okay.
emailed
Maybe I'll
some questions.
pop in.
Yeah.
I'll
So
grab
December 31st, 26 is the last effective day.
January
If that doesn't
1st,
change.
2027. It's in effect until then, so
Okay.
January 2nd, 2027.
That's true.
Unless they extend it again,
Yeah.
which I don't know if they are. I don't know.
I don't think there's any, like, I haven't seen a significant
Has
impact
it,
on the
like,
market or
impacted your
pricing or, no,
business?
no, not
Yeah.
at all.
I was gonna say, like, what?
And I mean, the number of people that I've actually had come into the country and want to buy, like, one of my clients is the Vietnamese queen's husband, and other than him, he doesn't, like, I don't know anybody who's coming in,
No,
so.
I don't think it's affected anyone. I've had a bunch of refugees purchase $2 million properties.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I think the biggest hit was in, I think it was 22 or, maybe, no, it was before 22 when all of a sudden the money, it was predominantly Asian money that just dried up.
In
like,
BC.
but in Canada too.
Well, I didn't see a lot of, I mean, I know BC took a big hit with their pre-con market and condos.
So did
because of
Oakville.
with the Pacific coast, but
Yeah.
I
Oakville.
didn't see it here. Like, I mean, I'm sure it
Well, most
happened.
of these condos that he was talking about, these pre-cons, a lot of them were being purchased by,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Asian buyers.
Hi.
Hi.
So here's a question from the outside world. If a buyer is a corporation
Yeah,
that is 75% Canadian owned and 25% foreign owned, do they still need to pay the foreign buyer tax?
they would not be able to purchase.
They would not be able to purchase,
So 75% Canadian owned, 25% foreign owned?
No, flip it.
So that qualifies them as a foreign buyer and they would be not exempt.
So the corporation has to be 51% Canadian?
No, he said
No,
75% and it
No, that's
was.
been 97%.
Oh.
So if a foreign corporation owns 3% or more of the shares, they would be, subject to the ban.
Cool. Thank you on behalf of Baylor.
Any other?
That's it for
We're
me.
Good. How's the market?
Depends if you have a condo or a house to sell.
Slow.
I just had a client buy a condo in Thornton Hill.
Yeah.
The pricing was insane.
Meaning it was multiples?
No, like it was, like, we got in, we negotiated, it took like a week to get everything done, but the price per square foot was great.
Which is to the bet, yeah,
Yeah,
to the
that-
buyer's benefit, like if you have condos, it sort of doesn't sell as fast or,
It was 29 days on the market, so still under the average DOM, but
So it was a good deal for the buyer.
yeah, I mean, it was priced right and it was a reasonable deal for both parties,
yeah.
right? Like based on where they got in 5 years ago and where they are now, but like I was surprised that there wasn't a lot of availability up there. And it's a cool little condo corner where it's just been overblown.
What area?
Warden and 7.
Hmm.
Some nice opportunities, it's close to the 407, just off the 401, it was, I mean, the rentals up there are doing
Yeah.
pretty decent.
I actually got, an email from, one of my old clients, and she has listed her condo for a year and it hasn't sold, and she's paying $6,500 a month, and she's like, I'm letting the bank just take over.
Where is it?
It's on Lake Shore, Navy Wharf.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, she's like, can I strike a deal with the bank to see, like, allow me to list it and then negotiate any shortfall? I mean, you can always try, there's nothing stopping you from that, but the point is, she had listed for a year and she couldn't not sell, and she's heavily discounting it now, cause she just wants to get rid of it,
Mm-hmm.
and she can't carry it anymore. But yeah, the prices of condos have really come down.
I think it depends on how realistic you are about the pricing from the beginning, like people are still, it was the same as in 23, everyone was hanging on to 22 pricing.
Exactly.
22 pricing wasn't working,
Yes.
and then you're chasing the market, and by the time you hit 30 days on market, people are saying.
I do believe if you're
Yeah.
priced right,
Yeah.
truly priced right, you'll sell.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the people very hard accept the fact that the market is
every-
down.
Every
Very
seller
hard.
feels
Yes.
their property is worth the most,
So
and
this
yeah,
is,
they want
this
the
is a
most.
state of brain,
Yes.
so
Yes.
that's the problem.
Or if they purchased too high and now
Yes,
they're trying
yes.
to, cause I've had clients like
Yes,
that
exactly.
as well, and yeah, so hopefully it will turn around, not that the
We'll
sun
see.
is out.
Yeah.